Hey guys, today is a very important class for all of you entrepreneurs out there, and even if you're not an entrepreneur, I think that in every job position you're going to work on some project someday and you're going to present it to either your management team or to your partner team or to your client. But today I'm going to talk about presenting your company specifically to investors, and I'm going to talk about investors that are specifically located in the United States, because I've gone through a lot of negotiations with investors. We currently have, I think, maybe 7 investors in LinguaTrip, including angel investors, which are private investors, and VC funds, which are companies that invest. There are several things to remember. First, don't forget to come up with a one-liner. One-liner is a sentence describing what your company does. LinguaTrip is a study abroad booking platform. That's it. Yes, I could go into a lot of details. We also have an online part. We also help people with their university admissions. We also have a 2.3 million student community on social networks. Have this, and that. But think of it, this is called elevator pitch. For example, you're going down on an elevator with a potential investor. You have 4 floors, and you want to sound interesting, and you don't want to overwhelm him with information about your company. So what you would do, you would give him a one-liner, and maybe some KPIs, maybe some metrics that would make him interested. Like, LinguaTrip is a study abroad booking platform. We're growing 20% month over month, which is a really good growth. I'm just telling that to you. I wouldn't tell that to an investor, because the investor knows the great growth is 7% week over week, and this is Y Combinator standard of growth. Good growth is 10% month over month. If you 2x every single year, it's also great. 2x, 3x, awesome. So you go down the elevator and you have this time to present your company. I would say, like, your growth, maybe, well, your one-liner, your growth, and maybe your monthly revenue. That's it. And then you wait for feedback. So this is number one thing that you have to do regarding your company. Second is your pitch. I would say if you are at an early stage of your company, your pitch deck, the presentation, the slide deck that you have, just consists of maybe 7 to 10 slides. I would start with just saying what your company does. Let's go through my favorite deck. If you're an early stage company, please have 10 to 14 to 15 slides in your pitch deck. And I actually wanted to go through Airbnb's first deck with you. I think it's really lean, really well designed, and it really reflects what the company did back then. It's from 2008, but we use it all the time to present projects to investors. So it starts with the first slide, Airbnb bed and breakfast, book rooms with locals rather than hotels. This is their one-liner. This is their elevator pitch. First, you start with a problem. So here there are 2 different approaches. Some people say if you have really good metrics, if your revenue is really good, you feel it's above average, if you're growing really fast, if you have like 1 million users on your app, start with that, because this is what interests the most. Some people are just not interested in travel, for example, and if you start with digging into the problem that you're solving your platform, they're like, boring. But when you come to your metrics, they're like, oh my God, you're making 1 million a month. Why didn't you mention that in the beginning? If you have really impressive metrics, I would start with them. If you don't have them yet, then start with the problem and try to emphasize that the problem is huge. Again, look at the slide. The majority of words that you would need to say to an investor, you would need to say them out loud. Please don't put too much information on your slides. The slides are there just to visualize what you're talking about and give you like a plan for your presentation. It's not something that you read from. It's just something that you show to an investor. Like normally how the conversation goes, we just sit like that with an investor. I show them my laptop and I go through slides and I communicate with a person. Some investors even prefer to go without a deck, so be ready for that. But normally you come with your laptop connected to a screen, an investor's room, and you go on with your presentation. So what we have here, price is an important concern for customers booking travel online. Hotels leave you disconnected from the city and its culture. No easy way exists to book a room with local or become a host. So they talk about the problem in a very condensed way. Then they come up with a solution, which is Airbnb, a web platform where users can rent out their space to host travelers to save money when traveling, make money when hosting, share culture. Again, very short, short explanation of what the platform does. They don't really go into details. They don't show anything yet. They just show their solution. Slide number 4, which is very important, market validation. Because sometimes you come up with ideas and the market doesn't exist. That's a problem. Like you're trying to create houses for snails and people don't really buy them, but maybe they do. And if they do, you need to show how many ads are there on Craigslist, for example, selling snail houses. Or maybe there's data on snail housing sales made by like professional organizations. So it's really important to have the data of your market. So they took couchsurfing.com. They said there are 660,000 total users, and Couchsurfing is like a similar platform. And there are 50,000 ads on Craigslist, and there are temporary housing listings per week in the US. So there's market validation that people are actually doing this already. They're renting their places through Couchsurfing and Craigslist, but it's not the best way to do it. Okay, so market validated is there. Market size. Yes, you are tempted to talk about your market size like, oh, this is a $2 trillion consumer marketplace. Yes, it's consumer, but you're talking about an addressable market. You're not addressing all of the customers' wallets. You're only addressing the savings that they have for travel. And look at how Airbnb approaches it. So there are 2 billion trips booked worldwide, but they're not taking all of those trips, right? They're only taking the trips that are budget and online. This is their approach. Because if you try and prove to investor that you're going after the whole market, like, we will start with selling this and we can sell it to everyone and every single person. This doesn't make sense, because when you're building a company, you're starting with a small market. You dominate it and then you grow it, okay? It's not even ambitious. If you sound unprepared, it seems like you don't have a strategy if you're trying to address a 2 billion plus trips market. A prepared person, a prepared entrepreneur comes with a small market, conquers it, and moves further. So 560 million budgeted online trips is their serviceable available market. And they're decreasing their addressable market even further because they are offering beds and breakfast and stuff. Trips with air, bed, and breakfast, 84 million. And this is great. So they're starting with a small market. Yes, they have this potential, but the strategy is to dominate a smaller market first. Now, product. Very simple description of the product. They're showing just 3 screenshots, search by city, review listings, book it. That's it. Very simple. Because again, at this stage of the company, when you're a seed company or Series A, which is like prototype/growth company, investors are not really interested in what you have right now. They're more interested in your potential. They're interested in your entrepreneurship abilities. They're interested in how you address the market. Whatever you have now, you can just hire a couple more developers and it's gonna look a lot better, perform a lot better. But the way you approach the problem, this is really important because you have to show that you are a future leader. So don't go too deep into technical details at this stage. Business model. It's important to know how you make money. So there are $84 million of trips booked with air, bed, and breakfast. Then the average fee that they charge is $25 based on $80 a night for 3 nights. And they project 2.1 billion revenue by 2011. And again, you can project anything. Don't try to be too realistic because investors really want to see an opportunity there, but just be ready to answer like, okay, this is 2008. Now you're making $200 a month. How you're trying to make 2.1 billion in 3 years? And just be ready with an answer because it's going to follow. So don't be too optimistic, but don't be too realistic. You need to show that there is a market opportunity, but you also need to show that it's a big opportunity. Adoption strategy is basically your marketing strategy. How are you planning to market this? So Airbnb came up with several ways they're marketing through events, and they're talking about specific events with the attendee numbers like 6 million Oktoberfest, Summerfest, 1 million, then partnerships, and Craigslist dual posting feature. So again, really important how you're going to market the product. If you just want to tell the investors, hey, we're going to go with Google Ads and PPC or whatever, the investor would be like, I don't want to give you money for your tests because PPC ads are really expensive. And basically, every successful startup at the beginning, they found something unique that they could do. So Airbnb's hack was to go through events on Craigslist. They actually scraped everything that was on Craigslist. They marketed at the events that had limited availability of housing. This is basically free. You just spend your own money. You just spend your own time on like going through Craigslist and stuff. If you just tell investors, you know, we're going to pour money into marketing, this doesn't make a lot of sense. Any company can do that. An entrepreneur is someone who solves problems in an efficient way. So come up with something that's unique for you. In our case, it was a social media strategy, like growing our YouTube presence and educating people for free. Then number 9, it's always good to mention your competition, because you're going to be asked about who you're competing with. In Airbnb's case, they're competing with like Couchsurfing and Hotels.com and Orbitz. And it's great to compare them in terms of like affordability, online transaction expensiveness. Basically choose 2 parameters. Normally it's price and maybe the product itself, and just compare where you are regarding your competitors, and you always have to be on top, right? If you're not on top on some parameter, just drop it, because you want to show that you're the best. You're selling your company to an investor. Competitive advantages. Just mention why you're the best. First to market, host incentive, list once, ease of use, profiles, and brand. Like whatever you have, mention it here. And it has to be like really crisp, and it has to be really attractive for an investor. Because investor strategy is always like, you might be worried about people stealing your ideas. Investors don't do that. What happens actually, you come with the idea, and there's a very high chance that this week the investor is talking to, I don't know, 2 more companies that are doing the exact same thing, maybe with different variations. And because investors do not invest in competing products, he would look for things that are unique for you, and they will look for things that will prove to them that you're going to dominate the market. Because they can only invest in one competing company. They cannot invest in 2 that are going to compete. They would look at all the companies, see who is more likely to become a leader on the market, and they're going to invest in that one. So you really need to make sure that you are listing your competitive advantages. Then the team, mention who is working on the product, mention your experience, why you're a good founder, include some pictures. This is a very basic slide. If you have some press, mention that. This is not a very important slide, because press can be bought and stuff. But if there is something really impressive, like you won some nominations, or you were included in top 10s or top 20 companies, mention them here. User testimonials, again, not very useful here. You can include them if you have really good ones, or maybe you have like superstars to travel through you. But your revenue actually shows if people like you and if they're gonna give you money for your service. Finish your deck with what you're asking for. You're asking for money. We're looking for 12 months financing to reach 80,000 transactions on Airbnb. They're looking for a 500K angel round. And with these 500K, they're gonna make 2 million in revenue over 12 months. So very important to mention how much you're asking for and what you're gonna do with the money. This is the slide deck. Prepare something for yourself. It takes a while. And don't be afraid to edit it all the time. Like, we've edited our slide deck maybe like 100 times. I was so tired of it. I was so tired of the process just because we had to edit the deck all the time. But this is something that we still refer to when creating our own deck. Further in the process, like if you're raising a Series B, Series C, you would need like 50 or 60 slides. But we're not yet there. I think so. We're talking about like seed companies. So this is something that you can rely on. I'm gonna finish this class with giving you some phrases that you can work with while presenting your company. The first phrase is give credit to someone. Like for example, your company has a great design, and I give credits for a design to our awesome CTO, Dimitri, who was the one who not only coded the platform, but also created the design. So you are highlighting somebody's accomplishment. And it's also good, it's also great to highlight your team's accomplishment and show that you're thankful. To keep posted on something, sometimes investors would reply to you, okay guys, thank you so much for your presentation, we'll keep you posted. It means that they're gonna get back to you if they have a decision, and well, they're gonna get back to you anyways. Normally, they either say no or yes. And sometimes when they say no, they tell you, hey guys, keep us posted on your progress, which means that, it's a good idea to send them updates maybe once in a quarter, maybe once a year, depending on how fast you grow. Because sometimes they reject you during the first meeting, but then they come back to you in maybe like a couple of years. So it's good to keep them posted on your progress. To have a view on something, you can ask an investor, what is their view on travel market right now? Because for example, when we were fundraising, travel market was not the hottest market out there, and investors were really afraid of like investing in travel because there was some startups that failed and people lost money. So you can ask, what is your view on? To take something on, to start doing something. I'm taking on a big project on our international marketing, and it's going to take all of my time. So if the investor is asking you, like, for example, what are you going to do in the next year? You can say as soon as possible, but you can always say at your earliest convenience. Please get back to us at your earliest convenience. Means as soon as possible. To manage expectations means that you are giving truthful information straight away, and you don't want people to be upset because they expected something else, and it turns out that it's not something that they expected. Hey guys, I just wanted to manage your expectations. We won't be able to deliver the results in 2 months, but I think it's viable that we achieve the KPIs that you've set for us in 6 months. Be very honest, be very upfront with your team's work, be very upfront with your pace. Because again, the worst thing is that you promise something, you don't deliver on it. It's always good to over-deliver, like to make something earlier than the deadline, and you're going to be appreciated for your speed. So manage expectations. Get back on track. Maybe somebody was sick. Maybe you were behind your plan, but now you're back on track with your revenues and you're keeping up with your plan, which means that you are back to normal. Brush up on something, refresh somebody's knowledge or skills. Could you brush up me on your last year's financials? For example, this is how an investor could ask you about your revenue in the past year because he probably forgot it or maybe you didn't mention it. To bring something to a table. When it comes to fundraising, if you have a really hot company, you would have a lot of inbound requests from investors and you're going to have a lot of offers from investors. But it's always good to ask what else they're bringing to a table apart from money. Because a lot of investors here in Silicon Valley, in the US, have experience in marketing, have connections to companies that you could potentially partner with. So if you have this demand, even if you don't have it, I would always ask an investor, how else would you help us apart from giving us money? What can you bring to a table apart from your money? This makes investors think that you're not just, dying for money, but that you're looking for long-term partners that are going to help you grow your business. Come to terms with something, accept something. So we came to terms with this investor and he wired $500,000 in a week, which means we agreed to his terms, we signed the papers, and he sent the money. Which, by the way, I wish you all. To start from scratch. Sometimes it happens that you were working on an idea and then you realize nobody needs it, and then you start from scratch. You pivot, you change everything, and you start working on something else. Yes, this happens, and many companies actually did that, and they ended up working on a billion-dollar idea, and they were able to exit, and they were able to make a lot of money. So sometimes it's good to start from scratch and pivot and create a new company. When we're talking about deadlines and schedules, we set deadlines, which means we create a deadline, we meet deadlines, which means we're right on time. We are behind the schedule, meaning we're late. We're ahead of schedule, meaning we're actually getting ready earlier than we promised, which is good. Give the green light to agree to something. I'm giving a green light to this project, or I'm giving a green light to this investor. Let's take his money, which means to approve something. Be ahead of the curve, to be ahead of current trends. Normally, if you're building a company in something that is just coming out, like maybe you're building a self-driving car, or maybe you're building AI that helps you with something. You're ahead of the curve because the market is not yet there. People are still working on innovating it, and people don't widely use this technology. And this is always a good thing. This is actually like being a little earlier before the market adapts it. Means that you have $1 billion idea potentially. Because when everyone is doing it and you're creating the same thing, means that you're already behind the curve, that you're behind the trends. Look at the big picture. Sometimes you're too overwhelmed with your day-to-day problems and you forget to look at a big picture. And sometimes it happens that you're just dealing with, payments, etc. But when you look at a big picture, you're like, oh, we're actually growing to X a month, which is a great thing. So always look at a big picture. Don't get too dragged in your daily operations. To corner the market, to dominate the market. We're going to corner the market in a year with this investment. Sink one's teeth into something means to deep dive into something. We're going to sink our teeth into international marketing. We're going to deep dive into international marketing. To be on the same page, to have the same vision, you have to be on the same page with an investor to accept his money, because otherwise, getting investment, like getting an investor, is like marrying somebody. Except when you're marrying, you can divorce. When you're getting an investment from somebody, there is a more complicated legal procedure for you to part ways, and normally it requires you paying you off the investor. So you really need to be on the same page with an investor. You need to feel that this is your type of person. And we actually declined a lot of investments because we just didn't feel at ease with the investor, and we felt that this isn't going to be beneficial for our growth and they're going to drag us back, and that the money didn't really matter that much. Even if you have a lot of money but you lose the control of the company, you lose this motivation to work. So be on the same page. And get down to business, start working. This is the end of this lecture. Please get down to business, start working on your pitch deck. If you don't have a project yet, just start working, look through Airbnb's deck. Read literature about Airbnb, for example, because it's a great example of a successful startup. Or maybe there's another startup that you like, read about them. Use these phrases in your imaginary pitch. So try and practice just a little bit to get ready for your next big presentation. And I will see you in the next lecture. Bye-bye.